Hey folks, welcome back to Nako. It's time, the call of Africa. Well, let's see. Koketso's not here tonight. He's out, being selfish, trying to make a living. I don't get that, people trying to get ahead. Nzuzo is not here, but then he's never here, so that's okay. And Nolu's busy taking care of something else. So we've got the indomitable, the unbelievable, the guy with the voice that makes you want to buy some soul music. It's Dumo Denga. Hey, how you doing, Dumo?
I'm good, Chris. It's been a while. Always good to be back. I'm looking forward to having another good discussion with you always.
Yeah, no, it's been a long time, man. You've had a lot going on. You're busy. Then I was traveling, and in fact, my last trip we didn't even get a chance to link up. But then I missed a number of people. Sila Nkabisi, Big Daddy Liberty is actually up in Gauteng, and I was supposed to link up with him, and that just didn't happen. Both of our schedules just couldn't overlap. And then I went to France for a month, and pretty much melted all my credit cards, and now I have to, stand on a street corner with a tin cup in my hand, pay for my bills.
Oh man, but at least you had the time of your life. But you didn't stay for the full duration of the World Cup in France, right?
No, I never do, man. I never do. I just I go for the pool stage because then I get to see teams like Portugal and Uruguay, and Namibia, which you never see otherwise. And you can see some whitewashes, but you meet a lot of cool people. I mean, in France, I met fans, not French, but I met lots of French, but I met supporters of all these teams from all over the world. It was pretty cool. Rolf Corver just gave a super chat, hasn't come up yet, and he says, real news for We the People, 140 Rand. Well, there you go. That'll pay for a Frappuccino at Starbucks. Now, after YouTube takes its cut and Uncle Sam takes his cut, it'll pay for half my Frappuccino. So... Yeah, no, it was pretty cool. I mean, I don't know if you follow any of my content. I know you're a pretty busy guy, but I actually had Nas Bota on. Did you hear this story about that? Did you hear what happened?
Oh, I saw you was on your show, but so something else happened over and above that. Okay.
Oh yeah.
I'm all ears.
Okay, well,
I'm all ears.
Nas was on my program. What happened is that before the World Cup, the day before I flew, I'd asked Nas if he was up to do a stream to talk about a preview for the World Cup, and there's the super chat from Rolf. Thank you for that, Rolf. Let that inspire everyone else to super chat at will. Okay, but so I had Nas on. We did a preview of the World Cup, and I've interviewed Nas in person before in Bloemfontein and had him on a few times. So it was a really lekker conversation. At the end of it, I kind of, not to put him on the spot, but I said, hey, why not take your chance? I said, hey Nas, this has been a lekker conversation. I'm going to be in France. I'm flying tomorrow. After the games, if you're up for it, I'd be happy to call you and we could talk on my mobile and record it. We can broadcast. And he's like, you can call me anytime, Chris. So I did. And, I was working like a demon. I'm driving from one place to another, hundreds of kilometers, getting to a game, getting transport, going to the game, coming back from the game, and then doing an interview late at night with Nas, recording it, editing it, loading it up onto the internet. And we did it for like 2 weeks. And then some little hate wanker that doesn't like Steve Hofmeyer latched on to disliking me because I made a video when that Dutch cruise line dumped Steve Hofmeyer. So I guess he latched onto me. So this clown goes and steals my content, my copyrighted content, does some deep fake stuff, altering some things, and then also takes things wholly out of context, puts it together, and then he starts posting on his Facebook site. I found out about it because someone told me about it. And he said that I'm a white supremacist, that I'm a fat shamer, and that I'm a COVID denier. And then he claimed to have called SuperSport over and over and over again until I finally got through them and said, why do you allow your on-air talent to associate with white supremacists? Now, I don't know if that's what happened, but 2 days later, Nas called me when I was in France just before the South Africa-Ireland game and said, Chris, SuperSport says what we're doing is outside the scope of my contract. We can't do it anymore. And that was the end of that.
My goodness. Haters gonna hate.
Yeah, they are.
And cancel culture is something. It's something really problematic, right? I mean, that's just the effort though. The effort, that they just go, they take things out of context, and then post it on social media. But I haven't seen it. But I'll just take your word for it. And and then now they phone your employers, and then they try to put pressure on you. Or let's say on Nas in this situation, which is unfair. And again, the employers are not going to fight this battle because they're not in the business of fighting cancel culture warriors, if you want to put it that way. But I think there is a solution. I think what people should do now that we have cancel culture warriors out there, there should be a guy who actually calls out these cancel culture warriors, right? And delegitimizes them. Because think about it. They're going around taking content, putting it out of context, and then all of a sudden employers get called. So what you need to do is, look, it's usually the same crowd. So what do? You do research on those people and you expose them. I mean, that's a good way to make content. I mean, and you can get a lot of subscribers that way. Maybe I should do that. I don't know. I'm just
no. It's an idea. You know, I mean, it's quite frankly. First off, look. And then they always play the victim when you point out that they slander you and they've committed crimes. Oh, I've been threatened. You know, here's the irony, Dumo. So I've been attacked and falsely maligned and slandered by this wackadoodle on the far right that lives in Australia, who, I don't know if you remember this, but this is early this year. After I interviewed Fiona Timms, who used to be on that channel as a contributor, and then he treated her like crap, so she left. Now, this is a woman confined to a wheelchair who has Lyme disease and is, suffering and managed, but she's South African living in the UK. So my viewer said, "Hey, you're going to be in the UK in May. Can you interview Fiona?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." She comes on she's in my chat a lot. So I interviewed her at a Costa coffee shop outside. It was lovely. Her caregiver drove her there, and we had a lovely conversation. And then because of that, this guy on the right goes, "Aha! We have the proof. We have the proof now. The so-called colonel's actually a secret CIA operative." And of course, the proof was a screenshot from the 2018 Energy in Africa conference in Denver, Colorado, when I was still in the Army. And I flew out there on my time at my expense, with the Army's permission, because I took the administrative leave. With my time, my expense, not paid for, to speak about China and the energy sector in Africa to a group of people who invest in energy in Africa. And I gave them the biography, which this clown used to claim it was proof that I was working for the CIA. Anybody can find it. Go search China in Africa, Energy Summit in Denver, Colorado, 2018. You'll find my biography. It's still up there. But he like, our backgrounds are blurred. He blurred the URL so his sycophantic followers couldn't see where it came from. And then he goes down and he highlights some of my past jobs that I gave to them. Bear in mind, this is an unclassified, biography that I share with the press. Everyone has it. It's on my LinkedIn page. Come on. And it says, security officer, CIA, see proof. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then this guy here, he takes, when I went to South Africa the first time in August last year after the lockdown, and I went up to Uppington and met with the Sightlanders, and I was at a fireside event with 4 other colonels, and we talked about our wartime experiences and this, that, and the other, and politics. And he steals that content from their site when I'm sitting there in my camouflage commercial fatigues I bought from Amazon, not a military uniform, and I'm sitting there, and he's pointing out, see, look, military, the so-called colonel, they're racist, white supremacists, separatists. And then he takes the audio from a 3-hour video. He searches it and finds this, where I was talking about when I was in Liberia and I went to the Akon concert. He doesn't include any of that. And I was there to get tickets for the Liberian soldiers, because the local telephone company, when Akon came to visit soldiers, promised Akon they would give me tickets for the soldiers so the soldiers could come. So I was there to get tickets for them, and then there was a crowd of about 50 people, and the cops weren't doing their job. They wouldn't let people in the VIP entrance. So what happened was, after about 5 minutes, suddenly there were like 5,000 people there. 5,000 people, man. It was crazy. People came out of the woodwork, just converging, and they're trying to get in the VIP entrance, which is not, the main entrance is on the side. Right. So finally, the cops came out, and I use South African terms because people know what a sambok is, instead of saying a whip, So they came out with like whips and like samboks, and it was like Moses parting the Red Sea. People just fled, and they just opened up a path, and then all the vehicles zipped in the gate real quick. And I said, you should have seen people. People ran like cockroaches running from light. So he took that and goes, see what he calls black people? He calls black people cockroaches. He's a racist. And what's sad about this is idiots actually believe it. See, it's these people like this. Dude, look at my account. Look at the body of my work. Do you think that if I was a white supremacist that I would have fought for the Forum for Democrats, a entirely Tswana-based party in Northwest, who were cheated out of their seat on the Zeros Council, that I would have fought for them to get that seat and help get lawyers, civil rights groups to make the IEC do what was right and follow that case up until a judge forced them to remove the EFF from that seat. Do you think I'd still associate with them? That I would go up there and talk to a go-go and ask her who she voted for and bring the plight of these people who live up there in Rietvlei for 30 years with no support, no paved roads, no water, just JoJo tanks, no electricity, no nothing, not even a roving medical van anymore, which they used to get from the ANC ruling Zeros, because I don't like black people. What a bunch of idiots. But you know, Dumo, I mean, look, we've met. You met me in person. We've been associated for a few years. I have to say this. If I'm a white supremacist, I think I'm doing a pretty good job of hiding it. Wouldn't you say?
I would agree. I would say you're a bad white supremacist.
Exactly. Well, so the point when I wrote that presidential daily brief back when I worked at the Defense Intelligence Agency that went to Bush, there was I don't know if you know the story, there was a potential famine in Southern Africa, big whoop, it's every other year, right? Anyway, but the Famine Early Warning Network itself established that 4.2 million Southern Africans were going to go hungry. Kids weren't going to get food because South Africa had a bumper maize crop because for some reason they had lots of rain and they had good planting season. But, you know, Botswana, Namibia, Zambia, Angola, you know, Mozambique, all these countries, Malawi, had all theirs failed because it was a drought in most of the region. So I was tracking this as an intelligence analyst, like this could be a problem. It's a problem for the U.S. military because no one else has any helicopters, and they're going to turn to us if people start starving. And I said, we don't have the helicopters. They're in Iraq, they're in Afghanistan, they're in the Philippines. So anyway, so I wrote this report, at the time classified, but I mean, I can tell you about this, but the CIA tried to stop it for 3 months. I kept pushing and pushing, finally got through that. And it went to the President of the United States, George Bush, and he was like, what the heck? So he was able to get European countries to donate $90 million to buy maize in South Africa and ship it to these countries before the rains hit and roads got washed out in Malawi and in Zambia, and places like that. So the Famine Early Warning Network stated that I kept 640,000 black Africans from starving to death because of that report that I wrote. Statement of fact. True story. So that was almost 20 years ago. Some of those people have died because they're older, traffic, whatever. But most of those people are now of childbearing age and are knocking out kids. So that 640,000 conservatively is probably about 1 million black Africans alive today because I wrote that report. I think they took my clan card away the day that I wrote that report, if I had one. You know what I'm saying?
No, they definitely took it away. They took your, it's like, no, they didn't even take it away. They deactivated it, basically. So when you got to the clan the next day, your card wasn't working. Like, hey, why isn't my card working?
I can't get in the door. I'm sorry, do we know you?
Exactly.
The agent.
And you're like, hey, John, it's me. Like, remember me? Like, I don't know you at all.
Should you be caught, the director and the agency will, of course, disavow all knowledge of your existence. Anyway, so Shaq Dweller just gave a super chat, 40 Rand, and it's awesome. It says, racism is a pigment of people's imagination. Indeed. Listen, I mean, I don't know Dumo's sister if he's even got one, but if I hooked up with her, we'd probably be able to make kids. Clearly, we're the same species.
Exactly.
Anyway, yeah. Hey, look, a lot happening in South Africa, man. I don't know if you noticed this, but rumor has it the Springboks won again the World Cup. I don't know if you caught that.
Yeah, I actually did catch that. Loud and clear. I actually watched the game. Brilliant game. I loved it. It was just like I couldn't watch.
Did you watch it with other people, or were you alone, or what was the deal?
I was watching it alone. If I watched it with people, I think I would have been like the party pooper, because I was like, when New Zealand scored their try, I was like, oh, it's over. Okay, it was fun, guys. Great. I was thinking that. I was like, there's no way we're gonna hold it for that long. But you know what? We did. We actually did a good job. And yeah, man. And after the game, my goodness, I think that's what was really memorable. Like, so I check outside my apartment window, and guys are just hooting. They hooting. Screaming, shouting, celebrations. It was really, really awesome. I really enjoyed that, and I think as Sia Kolisi said, our country needed that, definitely. So we did need that. Yeah, and then there was the trophy tour as well. The trophy tour.
Well, and which ended, then the bus crashed.
Did the bus crash?
Yes, the bus. Did you see that? Yeah, the bus drove off the road. They hit a building.
Oh my God.
Well, they said that the brakes failed. I mean, okay, great. So you're riding the Springboks around in a bus and the brakes fail. Oh my! That's just a perfect description of where South Africa's at right now. Sadly.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, man, it was. And look, the experience was great. I think even the build up to the final was also good. But from a rugby tactics perspective, I think South Africa used their tactics correctly. I know a lot of people in the Northern Hemisphere were not big fans of South Africa's tactics, even some Australians as well. They were saying that what we were playing for, we're playing for the scrum and getting a penalty off the scrum. And they were saying that, no, that's not a good strategy because it doesn't highlight the backline's potential. But I'm like, look, to be honest, I mean, I played rugby in high school, and yes, there is a difference. Like I've noticed with like Afrikaner coaches, they like to use the forwards a lot. And then the more English guys, they like to use the back line. And I remember that so vividly. We had this when I was in grade 9, we had this Afrikaans teacher who just got in. He coached the guys the year behind us. And he was a forwards guy. And we always used to argue about tactics. And he always said, listen, if you're gonna play a game and you're not gonna use your forwards for any set piece or to at least gain some ground, he's like, forget about it. He's like, your back line is just there to finish off the job. Like if you at the 22 and then there's a big gap, that's when you use the back line. But 99% of the time, use the forwards. So I think for me, this is what I saw with the Springboks was just really a tactic that has been around for a long period of time. It's just that maybe the rules favor them now because you can get a penalty from a scrum. But that's good because now, I mean, just imagine now if the best you could get was a free kick from a scrum. Like, I mean, come on. Like, then there's no point really in doing one, to be honest. Yeah, but that's my little. No,
that's interesting take. Not much of a rant, just more of a sharing. But let me ask this question. I know that Afrikaans is not your mother tongue; it's not your langue maternelle, as we say in French. But let me ask you this: Wat 'n kant, wit kant, rooi kant. Talk about build up to the World Cup. That was some anxious moments.
Yes, yeah. You look, Mbonambi, multilingual, as you can see. But that's the whole thing. I mean, if you played, rugby at a very high level, even at school, you're going to have to know some Afrikaans, and that's because usually the best players are the Afrikaans players, right? So, but I mean, obviously that's kind of changing because now, if you look at black folks, quote unquote black people, it's mainly Xhosas that are the ones that are dominating that one. But yeah, it's mainly Afrikaans. But I mean, going back to Mbonambi's let's say spat or whatever, I think for me, look, there's two ways of looking at this. He could have just been trying to rile up the English players, knowing very well that, like the word side, like when you say the buitekant and the binnekant and everything like that, right? Inside, outside, So he probably thinks, oh, this word sounds like the word, like the possible English word. Yeah. And then he's like, let's just rile them up. Because remember, rugby's a sport as well. Sometimes in order to beat your opponent, you need to get into their heads. Because you're just as fit as the other guys. Let's say you're playing against an opponent who's just as fit, who's got good tactics. You have to get in their head. And I think that is a great way of doing so. And not to say that I approve of it, but if they planned this, that was a very clever move that they did. And they got the English right where they wanted them.
Well, Bongi came out today and said, listen, the English rugby is very unprofessional. Which was fine. I had a problem with that because, again, my argument was that, why didn't England rugby approach Sorrow and say, hey, could you talk to these guys? I mean, he's saying this was said. And if it was truly, it was because it was Afrikaans and it was misunderstanding, then they could have said, hang on a second. Sorry, my chair keeps falling down here. I got to get a new one. The piston is losing its pressure. But they could have just said, hey, listen, we'll check into it. No, you misunderstood. It was Afrikaans. And whether it was or anyway. But they didn't do that. They without talking to Saru, went straight. Now, they're not obliged to do that, but I mean, it would have been a gentleman's way to do it. They went straight and lodged a complaint, and they're not backing off of it. They're like, Tom Curry didn't get a fair hearing. Well, first off, Tom Curry was wrong. Players are not allowed to approach the official, although that's what we saw throughout this World Cup, was out of control. Right. But Tom Curry should have gone to Owen Farrell and said, look, that dude called me out. Yeah, you need to say something to Ben O'Keefe about that. And he didn't. He went straight to the official and said it, and the official handled it the right way. He said, you do nothing. But I mean, so Curry is not blameless in this, but I don't blame him ultimately because maybe he legitimately thought he heard that. But the English are always playing games too and trying to get people's heads. So the bottom line here is that I think Bongi was right in finally saying something, because you can't let somebody call you a racist, or make that claim. That stuff sits out there. Look what happened to the former captain of the Proteas. For 2 years called a racist, only for a black judge and Indian judge to say, no, this guy didn't do anything wrong. He's not a racist. But what are all the stories in press, in the news reports, in the video for the past 2 years saying he's a racist? And that's what's on the record now. He'll forever be tainted by something he never did. He never did. So, I mean, Bongi's right to say something, but he did go a little farther. Not a big deal, but he's like, the English, is because they speak English, they think the rest of the world, that wasn't necessary. I don't think that 42 million Englishmen, actually think that the rest of the world doesn't speak English. I mean, they did conquer the world and realize that the rest of the world has thousands of languages and they had to work with them. So I think it was a little too much for Bongi, but I appreciate that he said something, but it's at this point, it's not a bunch of ado about nothing, because this is a serious allegation and it needs to be addressed. But I think that the media is really stoking this because the World Cup is over and they're looking for something else to report on. And I can be accused of, because I did a live stream, they go, well, look, you're looking for views too. And you know what? I am. No, I'm looking for views, but to be fair, I'm covering the responses that are out there and analyzing it and giving a different take on it. But anyway, people can say what they want, but hopefully this will get resolved. I said in a perfect world, there'd be an upcoming test sometime in the next couple months, England and South Africa. The two unions would talk ahead of time. Tom Curry and Bongi would walk out on the pitch and come over, shake hands, give each other a hug, bygones be bygones, and wave to the crowd. And that would just end it. But we have no test against England anytime soon. So this is going to sit in the background burning like hot coal, someone just trying to stoke the fires for a while. It's not going to go away.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, but it would be nice if they do something like that prior to a game. Because, I mean, you don't know. They could end up paying for the same club at some point.
Exactly.
That's also possible.
It's a very real possibility. Both of them could sign for the Pro 14 in France. And next thing you know, they're on the same team.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think they need to do something. But I like what you said with regards to the two rugby unions must come together and just talk it out and say, okay, we discussed this, and look, we shook hands, gentleman's handshake, and let bygones be bygones, that type of thing. So I think that'll probably be the best option, just to lay it to rest. Because I'm anticipating the next test that we play, and usually when you play England in a test match, it's always at Twickenham. I don't remember the last time England came here was a long time ago. And they were wearing red, probably. In
support of the EFF.
But it's been a while since England actually played here. Well, the last time I remember,
the British and Irish Lions, but not England.
Yeah, it's always at Twickenham. So, and look, I mean, it's actually, Twickenham is a nice rugby ground. It
rocks.
It's a very nice stadium.
The only problem I have is you can't drive there. You got to take the damn public transport, and it doesn't even get to the stadium. It's a half-hour walk.
Wow.
Oh yeah, it's a half-hour walk, man, and that's at a brisk pace.
Jeez.
Yeah, from the train station.
Wow.
So it's not. I mean, you could take buses, but their bus schedule's all screwed up on match day. They're like, this bus runs, this bus doesn't run. Then the bus is supposed to be running, doesn't run, and it's confusing. So I've more than once, because I've gone there for sevens, I've gone there for competitions. I've more than once taken the train and had to walk and one way or the other, either there or back. Usually it's back because there's no buses at this stop, and then you walk a kilometer, and then as you're approaching the next bus stop, the damn bus stops there, and you're 200 meters away, and you sprint, and they take off without you. The pricks.
Yeah. Sometimes that happened to me a few times when I used to take public transport, and I always used to think, what, they actually can see you, but you know what?
That's right.
They're just
you can just picture that guy sitting on the bus.
Wait for the next one.
Look at that sucker. Hey, he's a white guy. Let's keep going. Yeah. Hey, listen, all that aside, all seriousness aside, it must be tough, being an elite in South Africa when your VIP protection service is a bunch of wusses and don't protect you. The transport minister, I don't mean to laugh at her plight. No one should go through this, but the transport minister at 3:30 in the morning, Sunday becoming Monday. But, Ronaldo and I talked about this. We think she was just trying to get in the office because she's a hard worker and start at 4. But 3:30 in the morning, driving, and they blow a tire because someone threw something on the road surface. And then they're robbed at armed gunpoint. She has VIP protection detail who have guns, who are supposed to be studs, What happened there, man? What's going on? The elites are living just like everyday South Africans. Interesting.
Right. I think, this is a very interesting story because I would expect that if anyone tries anything against these protection units, that they would actually see flames, because remember what happened not too long ago,
just a few months ago in Joburg, where they beat the crap out of the SADF soldiers in broad daylight, endangering public safety, forcing them off the road, and they come out and knock the guy unconscious. They've been suspended. Yeah. Nobody criminal charges yet. Yeah. So anyway, you're good.
Exactly. So I thought, well, okay. I mean, these guys look like they eager for action. So I thought, hey, maybe the ones that got robbed were also eager for action as well. But it seems like that they were not prepared. And also now they can actually experience the crime that a lot of people have to experience every day. Crime is it's a big problem around the world, but especially in South Africa because we have higher rates relative to the rest of the world. And now they can say, well, look, I mean, we have security and we still got robbed. And now they can probably look at the issue and say, okay, what's going on with this crime in South Africa? Because I think what happens is that a lot of the times when people get affected by crime, the people at the top, the ministers and so forth, they never get to experience it. Not to say that they should. I don't think anyone should experience it. That's a traumatic experience. But if it really doesn't impact you, you're probably not going to do much about it. You're probably going to give it lip service and just say, hey, Mr. Begigele, or can you just speak about it? Can you go visit the site where the crime occurred and make a speech there? That's typically what happens. And, and if Ian Cameron comes along, don't shout at him. Just just,
I'm not the golden boy! That was the informal name of my tour last year in August, the Not a Garden Boy tour. Yeah, it was. I was trying to get shirts made, with a gardener on it. That just tells you volumes about the inferiority complex of these senior and the thin skin of these senior ANC members. Their egos.
No, that's true. I'm surprised that people that have a lot of power, that are much more privileged than I mean, usually when I debate people on Twitter, they'll say, hey, you privileged. I'm like, but your party and your party leader is probably it's more privileged than me. I mean, that person gets to vote in parliament for laws that get passed. I mean, what do? I mean, I just complain on the internet.
Oh, right? Bro, you've got to sit in traffic, in the Midrand, and they've got, cars plowing people out of the way for them. They don't have any delays. They get where they want to go when they want to go. Come on. It's crazy. Hey, but let's talk about these VIP services, just some of the failures and some of the things. Okay, so I think that it's time for an investigative expose into these VIP services because they clearly can't do their job. Let me give you just a few things. It's over a long period of time, but former President of the Republic's wife, her home broken into, she's raped and murdered. And that, of course, is de Klerk's wife. She was the former president's wife. And that crime was done by, we suppose, someone supposed to be protecting her. So there's a failure of the services. Then we've got, of course, the annual report that they give the VIP protection services to Parliament about protected residences and protected people. And there's something like 43 or 44 residents, if I recall, reading the unclassified report. And in the time period when Phala was robbed, burgled, they lied and submitted that report, which went through, I think, through SAFs or coordination, when they said there were no incidents that occurred at any VIP residence, when clearly Phala was robbed, and they knew about it because they responded to it. Then we've got Paul Mashatile's convoy, in which they lied to the public saying he was not present. It was just the guys driving, when he was actually in that convoy, we found out later on, and they forced that car off the road in broad daylight, beat the crap out of members of the South African National Defense Force, swept under the carpet. By the way, they beat black people. That's quickly swept under the carpet. Black people beating black people. If it had been a white cop that did that, oh my gosh, that would have been the end of the world. And then we still don't have resolution of that. They've been suspended now, months later. No one's facing criminal charges. No one's in jail for this. And now we see a minister whose car's forced off the road at 3:30 in the morning and robbed at gunpoint. What if they murdered her? What if they murdered her? That's a very, or what's just want to happen? Drug her off in the bushes and raped her, Mm-hmm. What if that had happened? And can you imagine? And so it's time, past the time, that the conduct and the work, the budget, the strength, the efficacy, the training of these VIP protection services, not to mention the pedestrians they've killed with blue light escorts over the last 2.5 decades, the danger they've caused. It's time for someone like Carte Blanche to look at this and expose this, because clearly they're not doing their job protecting the public or the people they're charged with protecting. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I think, an investigation would do well. I think, when people do pay tax money, look, we would like to have it for protection of ourselves. But of course, if you're going to use it to protect the elite, and then they're not being honest about their record, and at the same time, when they are called to task, when they are really needed by their customers, they're not there, or they get their guns taken away. So I think for me, an investigation would be the best way to look into it. But I still feel that, I don't know why they have their own protection departments. I still feel that this could be a service that can be done privately. Honestly, I honestly think that, all these guys that are part of this protection unit and whatever, you can just have a third-party company that provides protection at a cheaper rate. And if they fail, then you can blame the company. You can say, listen, we paid you so much money and this person got robbed and nearly got killed. What if she got raped and everything like that? Imagine if that was the case, right? And then we'd all be on that company and say, hey, you need to do better. Like when Thabo Bester escaped from prison, it was a private company, that was a private prison that he escaped from, right? And then there was talks about, well, we need to do something about private prisons and everything like that. But when someone escapes from a government prison, well, no one cares. So I think for me, I just think an investigation would be great, and perhaps private security would be better for these elites, and probably cheaper as well.
Well, Dumo, of course, I've in unusual circumstances. I've moved in these circles. I've worked in embassies around diplomats, been a diplomat, been around senior government officials from all over the world. And my take is slightly different. I don't have a problem with governments having VIP protection details. No problem with that. Okay. They are legitimate threats. Now, and I'm a free market person, so I normally like private services. But in this case, I think there has to be someone accountable to the government, in the government, that can easily be, So I think, so for instance, ambassadors have a personal security detail, but not everybody in the embassy has a personal security detail. They're responsible for security, but I've never rode around with anybody protecting me when I was working in embassies in Africa or in the bush. But the ambassador always had someone that was armed and protecting them. And I'm okay with that. Now, when there's a demonstrated or clear threat to a particular diplomat because a threat against them or a particular agency, then they'll up the security. I got that. And for heads of state, look, if you ever have the experience of a president of the United States visit, oh my goodness.
I've seen it.
the footprint that these people have, multiple huge military aircraft with multiple armored, president mobiles, what we're going to call those things they ride around in. It's unbelievable all that goes into that. And some people might say it's overkill, but I mean, I've watched Olympus Has Fallen, the movie. But seriously, it's I don't have a problem with that, and I think there should be a role for government. But there are real threats. I mean, wackadoodles and terrorists and disgruntled people.
Agreed.
So I mean, those people do need protection. I mean, I think it gets over the top, like with celebrities and musicians, but they also need protection because you've got crazy people glom onto them. But I'm just calling for accountability. There's no accountability for these VIP services. They endanger the public with their blue light escort behavior. They are not protecting these VIPs that need to be protected, and so I think they need to be called on the carpet. And I think South Africa's parliament is negligent in not having the light bulb go on, that my light bulb has gone on, and saying, wait a second, we pay tens of millions, hundreds of millions of rand for these services, and who's getting protection? Here in America, we've had something atrocious happen. Robert Kennedy is running for president. He's announced he's on the ballot all over the country. And normally, these people are supposed to get Secret Service protection. They're denying him Secret Service protection. That's a problem. He should have Secret Service protection because there's a bunch of wackadoodles that would like to take him out. And we've seen this. We saw Senator Rand Paul assaulted by a guy with a hammer. He came to his home and beat him in the head with a hammer. And no protection extended to him. We saw people violating federal law, demonstrating outside of judges' homes and demonstrating outside Josh Hawley's wife's house when he was back in Missouri doing campaigning. She was 9 months pregnant, and they were standing on her lawn, threatening her, beating on her door. And these are felonies in America. And when you tolerate that against people who are in positions because of their prominence that are in jeopardy, you just have lawlessness. And so I think that South Africa needs to demand accountability from these VIP protection services and from SAPS. Frankly, I think that if we did a proper investigation, there would be legitimate basis on the failure of the police in coordination with these VIP services to remove Beckett Seeley from office. Just saying. And just talking about SAPS, right? Yeah.
Who was that? There was the previous police commissioner. Was it Caesar Mkhunu? I don't know. I forgot
the commissioner, it was Kumalo, wasn't it? Or was it Kumalo? Or anyway, it's not important. But the previous guy,
Yeah, so he said that, and I think this was an eye opener. And he said this with and this is the only time I believed someone in government. And he said, guys, the police has become an all-purposes agency. And there's and I'll be honest with you, we don't have capacity to fill our mandate.
Yeah.
We don't have it. That's the reality, and it's quite evident because if you go around the country and you see there's some police stations that are under-resourced and there's some that are adequately resourced. Like when I went to Joburg police station, right? In central Joburg. Okay, it's resourced well. I still feel it's a bit behind on a lot of things, but it's resourced adequately. But then if you go to some other police stations, they're in shipping tanks. No jokes.
Yeah.
A police station.
Containers. Shipping containers. Yep.
It's a shipping container, right? And I was like, what is this? This is a police station. And that's the problem, right? I just think that now when the police is starting to deteriorate, and then now citizens are left more vulnerable to the criminals on the street, it doesn't really bring much confidence into security in general. And now we're starting to see this seep in to the upper echelons of security, like the VIP staff and so forth. You would expect them to deliver something of a high standard, but they're not. And it looks like this rot is just going everywhere. And that for me is very, very concerning. Very, very concerning.
Oh, I agree, but I mean, SAPS has been broken for a long time, and I appreciate the point you made, which is not made often by people. For me, it's just second nature. I didn't even think about it as being a point, but it's one we should know for people, and that is the concept of mission creep. In the military, we call it mission creep. Now, in the U.S. military, we're supposed to, support and defend the nation and protect us against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Next thing you know, we're putting out fires. We're moving civilians from earthquake zones and responding to tsunami floods and stuff like that. And I saw this in Botswana. The Botswana Defense Force is the one institution in Botswana that, for the most part, is above reproach. I mean, they're professional. They're good at what they do. They're largely devoid of corruption historically. But the BDF, when there's a forest fire, and there are forests in Botswana, most people don't realize. I think it's just a desert. But when there's a forest for brush fire, the BDF is called in to help the Forest Service. Christmas time every year, the BDF, because they have firearms and the police don't, do joint patrols for 6 weeks leading up to Christmas because crime spikes when people are stealing your Christmas presents and catching people who are shopping at the malls. So they're doing law enforcement. Then they're doing counterterrorism. They're doing counter-poaching, anti-poaching operations. They're doing national security. They're doing training. It's all mission creep. And nothing gets put in their budget to cover these things. And that's what happens to SAPs. There's no additional money given to them when they're given a new task. And that's a problem. When you have a force that's created to do a certain thing, they should stick to their competencies. If you want to do something else, create a different force unless there's a conflict and it's more natural. But if you don't resource them, which is what happens with SAPs, they don't get resourced, and we see this. I mean, you pick a station. You can find SAPs guys riding around with mirrors hanging off the side of the door, just dangling. Rust on the trucks. Trucks that don't work, lights that are broken, and some have nice brand new BMWs. It's a question of resource allocation and of actually preventing mission creep. And I think that your point is mission creep, and I see that with SAPs. It's a fair point.
Yep, definitely.
So that wasn't much of a response on that one. So let's move on to the next topic.
Couldn't say much on that.
All right. So I, on my broadcast earlier, pulled up the relevant Geneva Convention protocols, articles, international law, the law of land warfare, and a whole host of other things, including the International Criminal Court, to discuss Naledi Pandor's call for the International Criminal Court to issue an arrest warrant for, now, of course, how do you issue an arrest warrant without an investigation? You have to have an investigation to have charges, number one. Number two, Israel is not a signatory to the Rome Statute of 1998. Therefore, they're not subject to the International Criminal Court. Therefore, this is just pandering to the press and the uninformed public who don't know better that the ICC has no jurisdiction over Benjamin Netanyahu. They also don't have any over, of course, Vladimir Putin, but they issued an arrest warrant for him. That's illegal. It's illegitimate. But the point here is that she does not issue or request an arrest warrant for the war crimes and crimes against humanity committed by Hamas in Israel and being committed this day in Gaza itself. So, of course, I pulled out her hypocrisy and commented. I don't know if you want any mention about Naledi Pandor and look, some people are as dumb as a box of rocks. Some people are as dumb as a box that doesn't even have rocks. And I think that's where Naledi Pandor is.
Yeah, I think for me, she's just playing for her team. That's what I think.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
I think, from that perspective, the ANC has been closely aligned with Palestine and so forth, and anyone associated with that. And now she's just playing her cards in the way in which the party expects her to play the cards. I mean, that's what happens. I mean, now if you look even with the donation to Cuba, which AfrForum stopped, thankfully, it's because of the fact that the ANC is aligned with Cuba. So I just think that what's happening now is that, what is she's the Minister of Foreign Affairs, right?
She's DIRCO, she's the Minister of Foreign Affairs. DIRCO, Director of International Relations and Cooperation, DIRCO. That's your foreign ministry, yep.
Right. So if that's the case, you would expect her to probably have a more neutral approach because she's speaking as a minister. But now she's probably taken a ANC party line on this. And some people would say, well, I mean, who is she speaking for, the ANC or for South Africa? Yeah. So I think it's probably, I think it's a risky strategy. But I think also at the same time, she doesn't have to comment on it. That's another thing. So,
well, that would be, I think, the appropriate approach. If you're going to favor Hamas, then don't come out with a stupid comment that has no bearing in reality. There's no legal basis to the nonsense she's chattering. So just don't talk about it. And a lot of people are like, "Well, South Africa's withdrawing its diplomats." Oh, I'm like, you know what? The Israelis are probably happy. They just don't have to listen to them yapping at them about Gaza anymore because they're not there.
Right. So yeah, I just think it's just a sticky situation, really, because I think, because I mean, when I've been observing this, I've been a neutral on this because really I just because I just don't know which side to take. But I also feel that, look, there is some there is some legitimacy coming from both sides, but I just think the way this thing is unfolding, it's so chaotic, and I mean, you saw how it all started and so forth. It's a very tough one to comment on, but I just think, in my opinion, like, just what doesn't help is when you just stick to a side and make a comment because you want to cheer for your team. This is not a football game. It's not a soccer game. It's not a rugby game. This is
life,
real life. People are dying. People are getting eliminated left, right, and center. And maybe what she should have said is something along the lines of, perhaps we should seek an end to this conflict, an amicable end to the conflict. Even though that might be lip service, right?
At least it's balanced.
At least it's balanced, exactly. But now when she's calling for the arrest of this guy, that guy, that doesn't help. That doesn't help. And let's say she gives a balanced opinion on this, right? And she says what I say she thinks she should say. What will happen is that even if the people in the party are disappointed with the comment, she can at least say, no, but I didn't speak out against you guys. So you can't call me out for asking for peace when I didn't speak out against you guys, because then it's not like as if I made you guys look bad at the end of the day. So I think, for me, that's what she should have done. But I think she decided to toe the party line at the end of the day and play the party flute and go according to their rhythm. And then she made that comment.
No, I think that she knows that Sekant is black, green, and gold. And so that's where she's at. Sekant is black, green, and gold. But the EFF's Mbusiseni and Ndolozi had the most ridiculous statement here of all of them. He said that the Palestinians they are permanently subjecting Palestinians to racial humiliation. And I couldn't help but fall out of my chair. That's probably why it's broken now, and laugh when I read that, because Palestinians are Arabs, and Arabs in America are categorized as white folk. Arabs are considered to be white folk. So you have a black South African from the EFF complaining that the Palestinians who are white are being subjected to racial humiliation by people who are white, black, olive, and brown. If you know Israel and the Israelis who are Jewish, lots of black Jews in Israel, from Ethiopia, from the United States. We're not talking about 5,000 or 10,000. We're talking about hundreds, if not a million plus black folks. And so those black Jews and brown Jews, mixed race, and olive Jews, the Semitic people who were there, and the white ones who came from Europe, they are subjecting the white Palestinians to racial humiliation. It shows you how stupid and uninformed these idiots are. And then on top of that, all the sycophants who just believe it automatically. It's sad. It really is.
Agreed. That is sad. I think, I just urge people, like, if you're observing this conflict, read information about it that you may not particularly agree with, and then compare it to the narrative that you used to knowing. And then you can pick the facts from what they get in common is probably true. But I think people don't want to do that. A lot of people, they have leaders that they rely on to give them a narrative, because they feel that the leader is more informed about the situation, even though the leader may not be informed. And then as a result of that, they just take what the leader says, and then they believe it. And therefore you get statements from Mbuyiseni Ndlozi, and people just believe it at the end of the day, and then probably those statements can be easily debunked. Because I've heard counter narratives of that there isn't like an apartheid system in Israel, but there are some who say, well, it's not apartheid, but they'll say, look, but the Palestinians do get treated a bit more, I wouldn't say harshly, but there's more scrutiny towards them with regards to the border crossing and stuff like that. But again, that's what I heard. I'm not saying that is the case, but the apartheid narrative definitely that has been debunked many times.
Well, I debunked it 2 years ago in a video about the EFF protesting outside, and it was removed, and I was given a strike for misinformation when I accurately reported that there were 1.6 million Arabs, Palestinians living in Israel who are citizens who carry a passport. And but I used a word that they didn't like. That's why they began with a T. I won't use it here. So I because that group, Hamas, is designated by the United States State Department and by the European Union as a T group, and has been for years. Chairs down again. So I mean, I used that. Those are facts. It's fact. They didn't like it. So the EFF was protesting there a couple years ago, calling it an apartheid state, and I said 1.6 million Arabs live. It's actually 1.8 million, I think it is, live in Israel, and they're citizens. They own land. They can own land. Not everybody owns land. They run for office. There are members of Knesset. Over 100 Arabs have been members of Knesset, and the majority have been Christian Arabs, but there's still about 40% have been Muslims. There are Muslim generals in the Israeli Defense Force who are Palestinian. The list goes on and on and on. You know, it's just utter nonsense. It doesn't even remotely approach what the National Party did under the heyday of apartheid and separate development, when you had anti-miscegenation laws. You couldn't have sex with people who looked different. You couldn't own property. You couldn't vote. You know, it's not even remotely the same. And it's the same like the use of the G word. If the Israelis were committing genocide against Palestinians, then they would be assaulting Gaza, Judea, the West Bank, and they would have invaded Jordan to kill the majority of the population there who are actually Palestinian. But they're not doing that. So it's just utter nonsense. This inflammatory stuff that the people who don't think critically and the uninformed just accept on its face value. This is not a defense of Israel, my statements. It's a defense of the truth. The facts of the matter. Israel is culpable for blame for stupid things like telling Palestinians to get out of the country and then closing the borders. You know, where are they supposed to go, man? They can't even go to sea because you've got a naval blockade. The Egyptians won't let them leave at Rafah. So I mean, you know, that I think that's Israel deserves criticism for that. But I mean, so I believe in the truth, and that's where I come from. But no, I mean, YouTube gave me a strike for that a couple of years ago. So it's just unbelievable. But you know, you can't fight the narrative, or this is what happens. So, hey, listen, you know, a lot of people I think are really bummed out because, you know, Big Daddy Liberty, Sile Nkobisi, is not doing broadcast now, and Man Patriot has been quiet, and they're forced to watch my channel out of desperation, looking for some information and entertainment. So, I mean, can you give us an update on Man Patriot? Is there any progress on that? We're going to see it maybe in the new year?
Yeah, you will see more of it in the new year. I'm working on the content. So it's going to be more high time preference content, and it's going to be a bit shorter, you know, just a bit more easy to digest. I think one of the challenges, what I've realized, was that like perhaps our podcasts were a bit too long, and then people couldn't necessarily listen to it for long because what I've noticed now, there's a lot of podcasts but very little time, and I think that if one had to listen to each and every podcast episode that exists today, they probably wouldn't even get through it in their lifetime. I think that would be the case. I mean, even Joe Rogan has got so many. So, yeah. So, Man Patriot will be coming back. So don't be. No, let me not say don't be. Let me rather say I just need you guys to be a bit more patient. It is gonna come back, and it's gonna be better. It's gonna be a bit more chilled. More because I'm getting older and wiser, so
we hope
that just works. That just works, right? Hopefully I don't get dementia along the way or something. Pray not. But yeah, I think that's something that I will definitely be doing. So podcasting is not out of the picture, guys. Not at all.
Well, you know, I've actually I talked about that guy, you know, attacking me personally, and it's ironic because after Nas and I couldn't do the conversation anymore, which was around September 21st or thereabouts, just before the Ireland game. That was the 23rd of September, which really put a damper on my trip to Stade de France, because I was really so looking forward to a conversation with him after that. But that was really cool. Can you picture this, Dumo? There were 30, 40,000 people milling around outside on the street, listening to music, people having a great carnival festival for the build-up for this big game between South Africa and Ireland. 12 different times people came up to me, Colonel Wyatt, I know you. I mean, how do you even spot me in a crowd like this? You know, it was unbelievable, and it kind of made that trip much more appealing, because when I left that night, the damn cops blocked off the routes and forced us to go different directions. I had to walk twice as far in the dark through a dodgy neighborhood because there's no bridge across the canal there. So I was really fit to be tied and pissed off when I got back to my hotel because all the restaurants are closed by the time I got back. There was no food. And I had to walk like almost 6 kilometers because they wouldn't let me just go right here where that's how I came. I only walked 2 kilometers to get there from my hotel. But anyway, no, it was, it made the experience a bit better. Anyway, so the irony I was getting to is that, so I lost NOS and then I just kept doing my own content and people were watching things. But then when I got back here, I told people I could do a better job with my play-by-play and color commentary on Rugby Ascent. I can do better videos on this channel because I'm actually here. I have the resource in my studio and I can editing software and big screens and all that. Anyway, here's a funny little thing happened the way of the forum, man. I have been stagnant on viewership for months because of suppression of the channel. I mean, look at this today. I mean, today we have by the way, Koketso must be better looking because we had a huge audience for Koketso and people were super chatting out of the sky. Of course, it might also be that it was the right time of the month that it just happened. But anyway, I think we had one guy who had a little too much to drink and he kept doing super chats today. We had a big super chat day. But anyway, but the point of the story here is that I came back and I found a sweet spot with live streams that were focused on the rugby, and I kept them. I did them 15 to 20 minutes to 30 minutes max, and those have been doing very well. So I do the live stream. Several hundred people show up during it, and then I get thousands of views after the fact on those, and it's really cool. So I think that what you're saying, there's some merit to it. People's time, they want to watch live streams, but they don't have an hour and a half, 2 hours to dedicate to it. So maybe we got to find a short one. But that's working for me for the moment. Is these live? I did another one this morning on Bongi Mbonambi. We've got 179 people who've tuned into this, which is really, come on, guys. Come on. Yeah. This is Dumo Dango. We can get 500 or more on this, but they'll probably tune in afterwards. But the one I did this morning, I had 300 or 400 showed up while I was on for 30 minutes, and now it's approaching 3,000 just a couple hours later. So that 20, 30 minute, I think that's a sweet spot with a live stream. Also, I discovered this. I don't know if it works for you guys, but clearly my IP address with this computer is something that they're tuned into, and they're like, let's put the thumb on the scale and hold this thing down. But on my mobile phone, I sit out on the porch in the almost 0 temperature degree weather out there because it's fall, and I'm getting bigger audiences. So I'll run with it as long as it works, but it's working for now. So I think your point is a shorter format is having an impact right now. People are tuning into that because they're busy. They got stuff going on in their lives.
Right. Yeah. They don't have that luxury, and they probably would like to listen to the whole thing, but they can't. I mean, that's why if you look at Joe Rogan as well, look, he obviously is very famous, and obviously I'm nowhere near his size with regards to audience. But still, the fact is, the people are making clips of his podcast, and he even had his own clips channel for his podcast as well, because he knew that people couldn't sit 3 hours to listen to the podcast, but they may have 10 to 15 minutes just to hear what he has to say on certain things. So, we can just go. Yeah.
Several of my viewers have been complaining about buffering. That's a problem in South Africa. I don't know if it's YouTube or it's the West Atlantic cable that's been giving people a problem. There have been some challenges with that. I remember like a week or two ago, Ronaldo was going live and I was going live. I was covering rugby, and people couldn't even watch it. The cable was out, and then people were having lots of trouble. But hopefully that'll be solved. But you can always watch it after the fact, folks, and then you don't have to worry about the buffering. But yeah. Anyway, listen. Why don't we cut it short today instead of running a bit long? We haven't done this in a while, but it's good to see you back there, Dumo. Anything you want to share? Any stories I didn't cover? There were a whole bunch of an American shot in the face because he turned the wrong way, went in Yanga the other day, and then she's in Cape Town, and then we've got 2 German tourists who were assaulted. Then all these people stopped and intervened and saved them, and one of them was the cop, the commander from a local police station. He got out, they chased him down, found him. But I mean, the list goes on and on. The woman that was supposed to testify in West Rand, Randburg, she's murdered this morning, and along with her partner, before they could testify in a trial involving 4 cops for corruption. It's we could talk about all the miserable things, but we've talked about the rugby, which is good news. But anything you want to share, or any topics before we wrap up you want to talk about?
Right, there is one. It's about a South African in Detroit.
I'm glad I asked. Go ahead. South African in Detroit.
South African in Detroit. So the Kifness, great musician. He's on tour right now in the US, and he is in Detroit. He was supposed to perform in Detroit tonight. But what happened was he was in a they had a van, and in that van they had equipment, and that van got broken into, and the equipment was stolen, even though they were in a secure parking. So that was a pretty sad situation. And what is interesting, I think Fox News 2 or Fox 2, sorry, I don't know the American channels, but Fox 2 actually covered the story, and he actually had a few things to say. But it looks like he got a lot of support. I've got a feeling they're going to find the people who actually stole the stuff. I just got a feeling they're going to find it because there's just so much coverage on it, on Twitter and on TV as well. So yeah, I just want to just run that by you, because even though I don't know if maybe in South Africa we just have an aura where people say, please rob me, and then in America they just see it and people just get robbed. Oh, I don't know, but it just seems that wherever we go, there's just, crime follows us. But yeah, I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay, so I have three things to say about that. Number one. Okay, I didn't know it until someone mentioned earlier, but that's beside the point. I'll have to check into it. Number one, Detroit. Seriously, you worried about being robbed in Detroit? Nobody goes to Detroit. People don't even live there anymore. It's full of neighborhoods that are empty houses, row after row. Look, we could house all the people who don't have houses in South Africa by sending them to Detroit. They would have houses ready-made. Take a little repair because they've been neglected for a while. But, okay, you got robbed in Detroit. Doesn't surprise me. We're talking about the same Kifness who has an affinity and an obsession with cat videos, okay? Let's put that up there, okay? And number three, I've asked to interview the Kifness 2 or 3 times, and they blow me off. So, footsec, I don't care about their problems. No, but seriously, look, I mean, it's honestly, I mean, it's in a secure area. That's what's not acceptable. But I'm not surprised that he got robbed. I mean, people get robbed all the time, all over the world. But yeah, it's kind of a tough break for the Kifness. But I'll take a look at his U.S. concert tour date, and I'll send a fruitless request to interview them in person again and get turned down. But I'll do it anyway. I'll even promise to bring kitty cats with me.
And make another song from that.
Exactly. No, I saw the one where he kind of did the little playoff on the Springboks singing. It was pretty cool. I saw that one, but I haven't seen much of the Kifness lately, so it kind of hurt my feelings.
Kifness, if you're watching this, please consider. Please reconsider.
Dude, they're not watching.
Please reconsider. If you're watching this,
they don't watch.
You don't know.
No.
No. Some people, they like, they have guilty pleasures. The guilty pleasures exist for a reason.
I know that Morning Shot. My channel was like within 100 subscribers before it disappeared 2 years ago, and now they got 50,000, and I'm just down here at 13. But Morning Shot has members of Parliament, ministers who watch that channel, and they're not shy about calling them up, and going, "Hey, you got the story wrong," but I don't think any members of Parliament watch my content. I'm just saying.
You don't know, Chris. You don't know.
Well, okay, then let me throw it out there, okay? I offer an interview to any ANC member of Parliament, even if I've called you names and abused you publicly. You're public figures, so that's fair game. You're anyone on here, and in fact, I'll talk to any member who sits in a government position anywhere in the African National Congress, because we've got an election coming up in 2024, and I don't discriminate against the ANC. I tried to get them in the 2020 municipal elections. Couldn't get a single one of them. I had to discriminate against the EFF. I don't deal with those clowns. I won't talk to them. Now, I say that, but if Malema offered to do an interview with me, I'd be set. What I would do is I would have my lunch made, and I would get Juju on here, and I ask one question, and then I just eat my lunch, because he wouldn't shut up for 50 minutes. And so that would be the interview.
Yeah, he does love listening to himself speak. So yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, but I mean, he'll just run off with his propaganda and talk about how rugby was invented in the Eastern Cape and and how our people in the Eastern Cape were playing this long before these people. Okay, that's a dog whistle, folks. Hang on, let me blow the dog whistle. So that's a dog whistle, racist dog whistle. These people. Anyway.
Yeah, I remember when I first started working, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes
wait. You work? I mean, you're a black South African. We were told none of them have jobs except caters.
So, talking about like these people, that people. I remember the one time when, and I was very ignorant of this because when I started working with a lot of Generation X people and people before them as well, and baby boomers, and usually in the work environment when it gets political, you always say that team. I don't like how that team operates, or this team, why they like this. And then I remember I said, "Hey, those guys." It's those guys again. And then once a person in our department said, "What do you mean by those guys?" But he said it in such a way, he wasn't trying to start a conflict, but he was like playing along. And then I got the point and I was like, oh, okay, I shouldn't use that language. Okay. All right, I get it, But again, they were very kind to me with that because I understood, look, I'm a millennial. I didn't understand, like when you say those people, though, it really triggers some people. I was like,
no, that's a space that's already been carved out linguistically and culturally that you were just ignorant of. You didn't know about it. You didn't know any better, right? I mean, that's not until you experience like, oh, okay, that's what people. I didn't get that. People are quite innocent, and oftentimes they get pillared for it. So you're lucky that you caught on to that in an environment that wasn't so hostile.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Thankfully.
Yeah, exactly. So
got canceled.
There was there was something here. Something about Big Daddy Liberty. Big Daddy Liberty is okay. Once again, let you guys know. Sila and Kobisi he's just working on a huge project, which he didn't disclose to me, but he did send me voicemail because I inquired about him. I think Dumo, when Hamas went into Israel, because he's Jewish, so when Hamas went into Israel, and it's a small community numerically around the world, I sent him a note saying, hey, thoughts and prayers for your community of Jews who are under assault. And I didn't get a response from him, so I'm like, I hadn't heard from him in a while. And he asked me on as a guest, but only when he talks about military things. I'm like, but then he wasn't broadcasting. So I did get a voice message because I wrote to him because several of my viewers said, what's going on? Is he okay? We haven't heard from him. We haven't seen any things. So I sent him another. I said, listen, Celia, I said, lots of my viewers have been asking about your welfare. I've heard people asking other programs. They're worried if something happened to you. And he sent me a couple voice notes. He's like, oh, my brother, I'm good. I'm okay. I'm working on this really huge project. It'll be announced soon. So I don't know what that is, but I would imagine it's probably something either maybe he's getting some kind of sponsor or he's doing something for Institute for Race Relations. I don't know, but Big Daddy Liberty is okay, folks. He's fine. At least he was last week. I mean, I don't know his current whereabouts. The tracker that I put in his car stopped working. The battery died.
No, he's doing well. He's doing well, guys. He's doing well. So.
All right, cool beans. Yeah. All right, so there you go. So thanks a lot, Dumo. It's great like I said, it's been months since we've had this. You had a lot going on as well, and then I was traveling, so we're back. We'll get back to more regular Nako, and hopefully Koketso can join us. I won't hold my breath on Nzuzo because he only shows it one time, so he gets to be on the marquee, so he gets credit for that. Maybe we can get Nolu back on the program, but Kia Laboa. Thanks a lot, Dumo. It's great seeing you again, and I enjoy the conversation. And take care of yourself and your family as well. Okay.
No, thanks, Chris, and the same to you as well. Thank you very much.
All right, cool beans, folks. Dumo Denga, I'll let him depart, and then I'll wrap up, and we'll close this one down for today. Always a pleasure. Guy's a rock star. You heard about Man Patriot. It's coming up. They'll be doing stuff in the new year. Big Daddy Liberty will be doing stuff probably in the new year. I will have a few more segments that haven't been up recently. I'll be back in the new year. So thanks, everybody. Who's Man Nota? I don't know who is our Man Nota. I don't know what that is. The question from Sedgefield. I don't know who that is. Y'all take care of yourselves. That's the end of my YouTube broadcasting today, unless like some conflict breaks out or some breaking news comes out of there. And I'm not talking like the passing of Matthew Perry. That's not breaking news that would get me to do a live stream, but something big happening around the world. I've got to run off and maybe buy a new chair because this one is a problem and it's driving me nuts. And then I also need to prep for my radio program tonight and also check on the Veteran Service Organization. So as always, folks, it's a real pleasure for you to be here with us. Be sure to hit the like button. Feel free to leave a comment behind if you like after this. This is one of my favorite segments. I really enjoy the concept I came up with for Nako. I actually like it a lot better when we're able to get more folks on here. When it's at least Koketso and Dumo and myself, it's fantastic. We get one of the other folks on here. It's really cool too. But we'll be back with this segment now that I'm not traveling because I have no money. But thanks, everybody. Take care of yourselves, and thanks for your content viewing today. as content creators, we really do appreciate, as a journalist who tries to cover stories of interest to people around the world, I do appreciate your patronage. And it's the only way I can show it is paying it back with meet and greets and thanking you on air and that sort of thing. So, and doing things and asking questions and doing the stories that you want me to cover. So I do my best for that. So thank you all so much. And to my co-host today, Dumo Denga, thank you very much. Bayadanki Kialabo, it's always a pleasure. And that's going to do it for this one, folks. We'll catch you next time. And this will be loaded up on the Podbean. I'll strip the audio out and we'll put it on there. So I started putting audio back on Podbean, so you can download podcasts of the interviews and programs like this. Not of the news programs. I'm not going to do that anymore, but we'll do stuff like this. Cheers, everybody. Take care of yourselves.